In today's video, I want to talk about rents on a national basis. How are things looking across the United States of America? Let's do it.
You go as a dream through the faded eve. Some faint memory on a silver sea. All I ever bring to you now, I know I have to pull you into the water till we come out clean.
Having rentals right now is not a bad business to be in at all. Absolutely. In all this crazy madness, things are looking solid right now if you are in the rental game. Since January 2021, the national median rent has increased by a staggering 13.8%. So to put that in context, rent growth from January to August averaged just 3.6% in pre-pandemic years from 2017 to 2019. So take a look at these numbers. Three quick points here. Roughly after 18 months of disruption caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, New York has passed San Francisco as the most expensive market, nothing new, in the country, with a median one-bedroom rent of $2,810. Now remember, they were over $3,000 and went to under $3,000 for the first time in 20 years. So San Francisco's median rent is $2,800. Number two, rent growth across the nation continues to accelerate at an alarming rate. Zoomper's National Rent Index shows median one-bedroom rent up 9.2% since the second quarter of 2020, while two bedrooms are up even more at roughly 11%. So that's interesting. And then number three, the Austin metro area, nothing surprising, has been a popular destination after a number of tech companies relocated or opened offices there after the pandemic. Of course, some people are coming back after that storm and coming back out West Coast and think they made a big mistake. So it has had a huge effect on the Austin market, these companies going out there, and it's starting to drive up rent as well. New York passed San Francisco as the most expensive market in the United States. Nothing new at all. So bottom line, while rent continues to grow, apartment vacancies reach historic lows right now. Last summer, many cities were experiencing elevated vacancy rates, coinciding with a sudden decrease in demand as renter households, they consolidated. Meaning, so these households consolidated. This summer, however, demand has been continuously heating up, leading to a supply constricted market, bottom line. So in contrast to this time roughly last year, while the households were rapidly consolidating due to the uncertainty of the pandemic, the total number of households in the U.S. is now greater. The total number of households in the U.S. is now greater than ever before at over 131 million. So some of these households are likely aspiring home buyers, trying to get into the game, but they're facing a historically tight market, sales market right now, and are going to be priced out most likely. So bottom line, we've seen about a 48% drop in inventory from last year as would-be home buyers get priced out of the for sale market. So they're going to continue to rent. They're going to continue to rent for a long time. If you're a landlord, that should make you happy, as long as the moratorium doesn't continue. So the driving factor for increasing incomes and budgets of renters searching, for apartments, a high demand. So this high demand has created a tight market, resulting in, vacancy index dropping sharply throughout 2021. So as price increases rapidly, rents are now up more than 13% this last year, more than doubling the overall rate of inflation, So take a look at this chart, and it looks at the inverse relationship between the vacancies and price. It's just interesting to take a look at that. So when you talk about rent growth heating up across the country, while our national rent index always masks some regional variation, the 2021 rent boom is affecting virtually every major market in the country. This is a big change from 2020, when rents fell precipitously in expensive markets while growing quickly in more affordable ones. For example, the talk I did on Boise, Idaho, that was number one in the West Coast. So in 2021, rents are rising across the board. If you take a look at this chart below, it visualizes monthly rent changes in each of the nation's 100 largest cities from January 2018 to August 2021. So the color in each of these cells represents the extent to which price is went up, red or down, blue in a given city in a given month. So bands of dark blue in 2020 represent the large urban centers where rent prices they basically nosedived. So New York, San Francisco, Boston, and those bands have quickly turned red as ubiquitous rent growth sweeps the nation in 2021. So in 2020, 75 of these cities saw rent prices rise in August at an average rate of about 0.9%. So this year, all 100 cities got more expensive in August, and average rent growth more than doubled. So roughly only 8 cities still have rents discounted from pre-pandemic levels. So that's only 8. And after prices rose again in August, some of these cities that saw dramatic pandemic era rent drops are finally back to pre-pandemic prices, including the nation's 2 largest, New York City and Los Angeles. So in New York City, prices went up about 5.8% last month, faster than anywhere else in the country. So if you're a lover of New York, short term, that looks okay. So there, the citywide medium rent price is now about $2,052, above $2,000 for the first time since March of last year. On the other side of the country, Los Angeles experienced 2.5% rent growth this month, and the median rent price now stands at $1,874. So other major cities that eclipsed the pre-pandemic rent prices this month include Boston, Massachusetts, Portland, Oregon, and St. Paul, Minnesota. So what does all this madness mean? So basically that means that today the pandemic pricing is over in most of the country. Rents remain below pre-pandemic levels in just 8 large cities. 4 California cities in the San Francisco Bay Area, that includes San Francisco, Oakland, San Jose, and Fremont, Minneapolis, Minnesota, and Washington, D.C., Seattle, Washington, and New Jersey City. So if you look, kind of put it in context, your visual, this chart, kind of visualizes the rapid rent drops and rebounds in each of these places. Oakland and San Francisco they consistently made headlines throughout the pandemic for staggering rent drops, and today are the only 2 cities retaining double-digit price reductions. So the remainder should be back to pre-pandemic prices before too long, but who knows with all these variants and if they're going to lock it down again. If you're following what's going on in Australia and the UK, it's very concerning. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. So for the short term, it looks good. For other parts of the country, rent growth today is nothing new. Many smaller markets across the country began heating up more than a year ago as the pandemic and remote work spurred demand for more space and better affordability, i.e. Boise, Idaho. In regions like the Mountain West and the Sun Belt, rent prices grew even as the surrounding economy struggled in 2020, and in 2021 they continue to grow steadily. So if you take a look at this chart below, highlights the 10 individual cities with the largest rent growth since the start of the pandemic. So, interesting. So kind of in sum, to wrap it up, Although the pandemic created some softness in the rental market last year, 2021 has brought the fastest rent growth. We have, on record, have seen from the data nationally and nearly in all individual cities across the country, rent growth in 2021 has exceeded average growth rates from pre-pandemic years. So as prices rebound rapidly, even in the cities that saw the sharpest declines last year, there are very few cities remaining where rents have yet to surpass pre-pandemic levels. So, with the nation's fastest month-over-month growth, New York City's rents officially, caught back up to March 2020 levels this month, as did major economic hubs like Los Angeles, Boston, and Chicago. So at the same time, booming markets across the Mountain West, as we talked about, the Sun Belt and the southeastern United States continue to see rent prices grow. So as we approach winter, this is going to be very interesting. A seasonal slowdown in the rental market should relieve some of the pressure, but not much. But with historically low apartment vacancies, because that's the problem right now, rents are growing, household, mobility, a winter cool down is probably, in my opinion, is probably unlikely to reverse much of the dramatic price growth that we have seen throughout the year. There's just, in our rentals that we have across, when we list a rental, we get 30, 40 calls within 2 hours. So it's absolutely insane. We haven't had many vacancies because of the pandemic right now, but from talking to colleagues across the country, and a vast majority of our rentals are outside the state of California now, and talking to people in and out of California, there's no inventory, and if something comes up, they're just getting slammed with phone calls for rentals. So if you're a landlord right now, there's been some relief. The moratorium by the Supreme Court. I did a talk on that with the CDC. The CDC sticking their nose in the, in the rental space, and in that game that's way out of their lane. They shouldn't be doing that. It was unconstitutional, and landlords have been hurting right now. I see both sides of the argument, but landlords have been being taken advantage of, and I belong to a lot of blogs, a lot of groups, and I know what's going on out there. And with a lot of jobs out there that are available, over 10 million, a lot of people have been squatting. And it's time to give these landlords some relief, because we know that 90+% of the landlords are middle class. They have less than 10 buildings. And, the big players are going to come in and swoop up these buildings, BlackRock, what have you, these institutional investors. They're chomping at the bit. And we have a lot of problems with not only the rental moratorium, but the forbearance issue. And we need to keep an eye on that, because that's ending. And that could be a major problem compared to 2008. So just want to give you a national rental update. Take care. Be creative.